It's Astrology Roast. I think it needs to sound like a shitty intro, like a funny, shitty intro.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Astrology Roast. My name is Karen.
My name is Itai.
And we have a very, very special episode for you today. So a while back I was fortunate enough to be a part of the Festival of Jewish Arts and Music at the Melbourne Recital Centre, and I facilitated a panel discussion between four amazing artists. One of the artists on the panel was and is Zackary Drucker, who is probably best known as one of the producers from Transparent, which is one of my most favourite shows ever in the entire history of shows and the world.
Wow.
Now, I'm actually a relatively shy person when it comes to reaching out to people, but I flicked Zackary an email before the festival asking if she'd be happy to be interviewed for Astrology Roast, because I had heard on the grapevine that she was actually interested in astrology. And much to my pleasure and overwhelm and excitement, she said yes, and actually revealed that she's a Taurus, which, I've got a bit of a speckled, crazy history with Taureans, but I was open to it and very excited. And on the actual day, I was super nervous and super excited, but I had a chat with her. She was very, very generous and very giving of her time and her presence. We actually recorded this episode in a kitchen in the back of the Melbourne Recital Centre, surrounded by dishes and pots and pans in this tiny little room. And it was a pretty beautiful hour or so, just sitting hunched down over a microphone, having a beautiful chat with someone whose work I'm incredibly, a huge fan of. I got to say, yeah.
I think you also have to tell us whether you were wearing glasses and a name tag and a badge, or was that just like the pots and, raw and real?
It was really raw and real. I'd gone to the festival and I was already very nervous and excited about it, so I was wearing my hoop earrings. And as I was walking towards the festival, one of the earrings got lost and it fell off.
No.
And I was like, no, this is my kryptonite. I've lost my special power, and how am I going to do this? And so I walked into a shop and I bought some glittery socks, because I was like, okay, I need some kind of color or glitter if I'm going to be wearing one earring. And so I put my glittery socks on. Smart move. I looked a bit like Santa Claus because they were green, but that's fine. And I walked in, and then I was in the back room, the green room of the festival, with all these incredible artists and musicians
with your green
walking
socks.
in and out. With my green socks, and Zackary Drucker, who was just sitting next to me, being super friendly and super lovely, and just we were having a really amazing chat about life and love, and I was just like, wow, I could just talk to this person forever and listen to them forever. And then she was generous enough to give me another hour of her time. And even though, she was talking multiple times during the festival and had a lot of commitments, she was still really honouring of my request, present, happy, forthcoming, open to talking about so many broad topics, and such a switched on, wise, intelligent and humble human being. Her body of work is pretty incredible, and I saw her speak at a couple of lectures while she was in Melbourne, and each time I was just happy and learned something new, and felt really moved by the work that she does.
And there's something
I felt so excited, and I hope that translates, because I can't even listen to this recording again, because I just felt so happy to be in that moment with her.
I think it definitely translates, as someone who heard it but wasn't there, unfortunately.
And I wished you were there, Itai. I thought of you the whole time.
I wished you too, but I
wanted you to be there, and it felt like you needed to be there, and you weren't, and I didn't have you there. I didn't even have my other hoop earring. I didn't have it.
I really think you did an amazing job, and I really felt, first of all, I think it's super interesting, and there's something about Zackary which is really cool, the fact that she says some of the smartest things you will hear,
yes.
But the way she says it is almost like as an afterthought, like it comes to her so naturally. I don't know if afterthought is a good English word. Maybe I'm like not translating well what I think, but I'm saying it all comes effortlessly.
Oh, it was. I was so. I was in such a mind or headspace after chatting with her that at the end of the festival, I just walked up to her and I was like, "Look, this is going to sound really weird, but I think you're a channel." And I still think that every time I spoke to her or saw her speak in front of numerous audiences, I felt very strongly that she's here to communicate and share a very important message through her words and her art. And she has such a strong sense of mission and responsibility in every word that she says. Yeah. She is transmitting something very important that she's here to share, and she's doing it across multiple platforms and in multiple 100. Creative and engaging ways. And she says a number of times, like, she really values kind of having that conversation and sharing that message broadly, and it feels like she's ready to have that discussion with anyone and everyone, and whether they're ready to have conversations with her about some of these more challenging topics. And I think she's really important person to hear speak, or if you get to see her YouTube clips, or if you've watched Transparent and felt the power of that work, she's got so much of a body of work that you can learn from. And I've seen some of her movies, and her photography is amazing. So I was in a state. I was in a state.
But I also want to say that it's also cool from an astrological point of view to listen to this interview and have that lens of, okay, she's a Taurus, and see how that reflects so much in the way that she views art. And like she says a few times, like, how she sees it as creating something out of nothing, and kind of like in witchcraft and magic, and the fact that a movie is a magic because it was not there before you made it. And it just so really, I'm a bit in a loss for words, because I think when I was listening to it, I kept having these like things clicking in my head every time she or you made a point. So I'm really excited for our listeners to hear it. And also, like, I just feel really cool because it's our little podcast, and it got someone who literally produced Transparent, which is like a real Hollywood show.
It is. I know. We've gone global. This is about us.
We've gone global.
No, it's about Zackary Drucker.
Where can you find Zackary Drucker? And for people that finish this interview feeling like they want more, what should they look up? Good question. So obviously you can follow Zackary on multiple platforms, as she is popular in many ways, but she's on Instagram. She has also recently been part of an editorial piece called Amplify for a Gay Times publication. She was also pivotal in the musical finale of Transparent, which has just dropped in the United States, which I haven't seen in Australia yet, and I'm busting to see. She's also done a lot of other work, but definitely look her up on YouTube or on the internet. She has a lot of public talks where she talks about her art and the work and the importance of visibility, in particular for LGBTIQ and trans communities, but she has got so much to say about so many other topics. And yeah, Ty, as you said, the way that she speaks about art as a manifestation of love and of creation, I felt giddy with excitement about and hope for the world. And I think it's a really rare person that can distill information in such a beautiful, succinct and articulate way. 100%.
And people like this are rare, and I just felt pretty stoked.
So we really hope you like it, and I'm sure like that you will enjoy this interview. We do want to apologize a little bit for the quality of the interview. It was, as you said, in a little kitchen, but you will forgive us, I hope, because of the content that is amazing. So enjoy the interview, and we will see you on the next episode of Astrology Roast. So hi everyone, my name's Karen, and I'm here with an incredibly special guest, Zackary Drucker. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat on my humble podcast, Astrology Roast. I'm so delighted to be with you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a thrill to connect here and now.
Yeah, and for those that obviously can't see where we're sitting, we are sitting in a kitchen at the back of the Melbourne Recital Centre. We're surrounded by dirty dishes and boxes and spray and wipe, and the echoing is wonderful. So it's a really earthy, low budget, grassroots recording that we're doing today. And Zackary, thank you for being really open to that.
Oh my God, I love it. And just outside the door is a brilliant music and arts festival, the Festival of Jewish Arts and Music, which is what brings me out here. So you might hear music in the background.
Yes.
Amongst other, random sounds from the outside world.
Yes, a lot of Jewish people chatting.
Mm-hmm.
The sounds of that, but kvetching and chatting and all of that. And it's a beautiful festival, and I'm really pleased that they've been able to bring you out to Australia to participate. So Zackary, so many people know your work, one of your most notable works being one of the producers on Transparent, but you've also done photography, you've done performance art, you've done acting, you've done everything. So I'm very intimidated, very excited. But in addition to that, you are also pretty shit hot when it comes to astrology.
Yeah, well, I've been in California for the past 14 years, so I think the California lifestyle is very kind of like esoteric and holistic, and astrology seems to be a big part of it. It's like definitely the centerpiece of a lot of conversations. Like,
is that connected to the weed vibes
Probably.
in LA? Like the weed and the astrology, like chilling out, going deep, just chatting about life and love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like probably in other places there's and in other cultures even, like people bond over sports, or they bond over, what they do. Like there's
who are these people?
Yeah, but like a typical icebreaker conversation in California is about astrology.
Yeah, I
so
love
it's just
that.
something that it's like information sharing, and obviously, whatever people know about their chart and are able to share, I think the closer you get to knowing them and understanding kind of their point of origin and how they operate.
And
bottles.
There are bottles full.
Cascading waterfalls.
This is raw. This is raw, real. We are in life right now. We are in conversation. So I'm not going to clean this up for the audience. I'm not going to make this less messy. Life's messy.
It is.
As we know. And we've been talking for the last hour whilst you were putting on your immaculate makeup for the panel discussion that we will share soon for the festival. But do you feel comfortable to share your natal chart or some of the key aspects of your chart? Like, I don't want to tell that story for you.
Well, actually, it's funny, we have it in front of us. So I was born in 1983, the year of the pig in Chinese years. I was born in Syracuse, New York, May 14th.
Auspicious day.
Yeah, so 10:20 p.m. So, obviously my sun sign is Taurus, rising Sagittarius, and moon in Gemini.
Yes.
Which is your sign, Karen.
Yes.
Come to find out.
And I think when you disclosed your chart, you had this sense of shame around your Gemini moon, and I get it. I really do get it. But, you obviously identify a lot with your Taurean qualities because there's a lot of Taurus in your chart.
Tons, yeah.
Tons.
So I have, it's not only my sun, but it's also Mercury and Mars.
Yeah.
And my Chiron.
Your Chiron, your wound and your healing is in Taurus as well.
Yeah.
So does that sound right to you, your chart? Do you look at it and feel like, this is me? This makes sense to me?
It does. And honestly, like, the more I learn, the more sense I make. I think that we are star material, like that humans, like that there is some kind of ray that's beamed into our bodies at birth, that lasts until, our death. I was just reading this book last night, and it was talking about like the 3 states of waking, being like the state of waking in your in the morning in life, and then the state of waking post death, like after the dream of life. And then I forgot what the third one was. But
I got distracted. But that's your like mundane day-to-day waking, and then just that post-death waking. These are very strong, heavy, esoteric concepts, which I love that you're just reading that in your spare time.
Yeah.
Firstly, also the fact that you're reading a book, like that's very cool, very impressive.
Yeah. Oh my god, I read a lot.
Wow.
I mean, I always have like a few books.
Wow.
And right now, I'm reading a book. It's actually really interesting. It's rooted in like Buddhist philosophy, and it was recommended to me by the great Jonathan Ames, who's my cousin, who's also a writer and a television producer. For anybody out there who knows Jonathan Ames's work, he is my cousin, and his shows were Bored to Death on HBO.
Wow.
And Blunt Talk on Stars. And I'm trying to find the name. I'm actually looking at my phone because I'm trying to figure out the name of the book that I'm reading, because it was recommended to me by him, but it's called When Things Fall Apart.
By Pema Chodron.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I didn't have to be looking it up.
No, it's good to double check, because I do make up a lot of things. So it's good to, wow. So you're reading at the moment stuff about Eastern philosophy, and you've obviously got a passion and an interest in astrology. You mentioned before that you're even, one of your housemates is, a badass tarot / witch who does ritual work. And I'm just curious, like, what is the attraction or the draw to, the esoteric, the spiritual, do you see that as an antidote to some of the afflictions of the modern world that we live in? Or is it just something that's deep inside you that, you're just drawn to it and there's no explanation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's just more to life than what we see and what we feel. I think there's like, I think that we have more than 5 senses. Like, I think that we're so, and, the more we can do to elevate our consciousness, the closer we are to the ephemeral realms. But I think that there's all kinds of things happening, like in other possible dimensions and alternate dimensions. I think that humans are infinitely possible, that we are capable of doing amazing things and horrific things. And it's basically a choose your own adventure, but we end up in these different kind of dimensions, and obviously there's a shared consciousness and a shared physical reality, but reality is a mass hunch.
Wow. Shit got deep.
Yeah,
but it's
I'm a deep chick. I mean, I think that's the other piece of it, is just the like part of being an artist is provoking critical thought, and the more that we can challenge, our own kind of like the things that we judge as empirically true, the limits of our minds, the limits of our bodies. I mean, I just think that that's the most interesting work to do. And then I also believe that like our noblest pursuit is love and art. And I think that magic happens around those two things. And then there is, of course, real magic.
Wow.
And I think that there's actually like a lot to be said about, ritual and Judaism and the kind of more contemporary phenomenon of Jewish witches. I think there's like a very kind of conducive and porous relationship between the two. So that probably has something to do with it as well. I mean, I think that having a relationship to one's Judaism is to like be rooted in this ancient tradition, this ancient tradition of survival, and to like create love between two people is something that's never happened before. So that's magic. And to create art is to like produce and materialize or enact something that has never happened before.
Wow. And I love how those two values or qualities, art making and love making, in all the senses of those words, are pretty fucking Taurean passions, because we know that Taurus, and it's so reflected in your chart, is the love of the aesthetic, the sensual, ruled by Venus, and the making of things, an actual tangible thing that comes from something. And yes, you know, we've spoken sometimes about them being possessive and a bit batshit, and you know, in relationship, very interesting and passionate people.
Yeah.
And you're not possessive, no. And you've been so generous and so amazing. And there are a lot of beautiful Taurians who are. But I think the concept of making something and expressing something and making it beautiful, which is true of art, is true of love. And, you know, you are ruled by Venus as well. They love, you know, the earthly pleasure, the earth, touch, looking good.
Yeah, all those things. I can't help myself. I mean, I think that, like, my life has been defined by producing love. And to my own detriment, ultimately. Like, I think that, you know, sometimes they can't turn it off or can't stop it. But, you know, to go back to your question about the Gemini moon, I think that that's just, you know, Geminis are... especially to have your moon in Gemini, to have your like emotional world kind of to have duality with your emotional world. You know, I mean, I think that's the thing that's sometimes hard to navigate. But Pisces also have this like two fish in separate directions.
They do.
You know, there's a lot of duality. Libras are...
Yeah, so you've come to terms with your Gemini moon, do you feel?
I
or is
think
it
so.
still, is there resistance there?
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, honestly, like, I'm not, I don't think I'm very, like, singular in that way. And especially with love, which is why I'm not possessive, because I believe that, like, we can produce love wherever we go, and it shouldn't be limited or restricted to, like, one person forever. You know?
So maybe your Gemini moon has served you.
I think it has.
It's legit, you know, because they say with Gemini moons, you know, full disclosure, I am one as well. So obviously I just, you know, want to talk about it probably too much.
We're sisters.
We are.
We're
emotional messes. No, it just means we find safety in friendship and communication, and it's not actually about possession and limits. And you don't need to own the person. You don't need to know that they're your one and only, but you do need to feel like they're in friendship with you, and they're there to talk and explore and communicate with. So that's a really, maybe that's why you've got this gentle Taurian quality that is the earthy, sensual Venusian Taurian, as opposed to the bullish, ruled by the banks and money and finances Taurians.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're just a lovely person.
Aww.
That could be just, you know, the Buddhist framework of that.
Oh my god. And then the other unique thing is that both of my parents are Taurians.
Yeah, wow.
So there's 3 of us, and my brother is a Virgo. So all 4 of us in my family of origin are earth signs, which I think is probably pretty unusual.
Yeah.
And then sharing, you know, a sign with my parents. Obviously, our complete charts look very different. They were born in different years, and but I feel like some of the things that are typical of Taurians don't necessarily apply to me, because also like I was reacting against some of those things because they were so present in my parents.
So it's just a classic tale of like rebellion.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I just take like stubbornness, like the number one cited Taurus trait, that doesn't work if there's 3 of you in one house. Like, it's not all 3 of you can be stubborn. Like,
That's
maybe
true.
one person can be, and everybody else has to kind of, maneuver around that.
But there's still a stubbornness in saying, well, fuck you all, I'm not going to be stubborn. I'm actually going to be my own person.
Yeah.
And not fit into this expectation of my Taurean upbringing.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, like, what is stubbornness? Like, is it a resistance to change? Is it a conviction to one's own will? Like, maybe that's the better way of looking at it. Because I really just feel like, to be human, we must be flexible. We must be pliable. Because, like, rigidity is death. Like, we are physically pliable when we're alive, and then we're, like, physically rigid when we're dead.
Wow.
And, to be stubborn and unwilling to accept change is to be in opposition to the natural order of things. Like, change is the only thing that's guaranteed.
So, but do you feel the experience of nostalgia? Because I think that can be another manifestation of the Taurean. I want things to remain fixed and as they are, but it's also a deep nostalgia for tradition, and it doesn't sound like that's something that you think is a good thing. You think that change and flexibility and progress can be really quite beautiful.
I do. I am nostalgic. I think that the older you get, the more the past can feel like a great weight. And I'm starting to understand, because I've had so many intergenerational friendships in my life, that many of the elders who are most rooted in the present, who are most open to young people and learning from young people, are the ones who've let go of that nostalgia or who don't want to look back. And that can be limiting. So many, think about, like, even, how many people you know of who don't understand their family history and where they're coming from, or don't know much about their grandfather who, survived the Holocaust because they never wanted to talk about it, or there's, whatever there is in your family history, like, the elders in our lives, sometimes share and they sometimes don't. And I think that, like, I'm starting to realize, like, I was just scrolling through pictures for some reason today, and I came across a picture that, well, there's just been a lot of, like, endings, I think, in my life already. And as those, as you heal and move on and move forward, that kind of nostalgia can just, I think, bring sadness to it. So I think, like, ideally we just move forward and accept, like, our present and the people who are in our present, instead of, like, dwelling on what's passed us by.
I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
Have you done a lot of research into your lineage and your kind of familial lineage, not just obviously the fact that everyone's Taurus and Virgo in your family, but your actual
in my family of origin. But I think, beyond my family of origin, I can't think of that many earth signs. I read that people who are conscious of their lineage, of their family trees, people who come from families with traditions, even if it's just, amongst the living generations, like people who go to the flea market together, like, families that do things and have traditions together, that there was a study somewhere in the United States that
sounds like totally legit. Some
totally.
Research so Google it, yeah?
It was the New York Times or this article.
Fancy.
Yeah, anyways. And they studied, and polled people and found that the people who are more conscious of their histories were more successful.
Really?
Yes. Because basically you're drawing from all of this awareness of my this is my story. Like my great-grandmother moved to New York alone at 17 years old from Eastern Europe. She was a Jewish immigrant.
Wow.
Landed in the Lower East Side, lived in a tenement for a number of years, and couldn't afford to take the trolley in both directions to the garment district where she works. So she would pay the nickel fare in one direction and have to walk in the other direction. So you hear a story like that where you're like, and I knew her, I was very close with her for the first 10 years of my life because she lived to be 98 years old. And that, I mean, to me as a young person, having contact with a person, with somebody who was from a very different time. She was born in 1896. English was probably her fifth language.
Wow.
Fourth or fifth language. And she was like this time traveler to me. Like she represented this bygone era, country, life. And by overlapping with her in the first 10 years of my life, I'm also touching that history.
Yeah.
So when I moved to New York City at 18 years old, I kind of made a similar exodus, but from Syracuse, New York, which was a lot closer than Galicia, the Austro-Hungarian Empire where she had come from. But I went with her history fortifying me.
Yeah.
I felt the strength of her journey, and I think that it made me stronger.
Yeah.
Just walking around the world being realizing, walking through the Lower East Side, seeing those tenement buildings and thinking my great-grandmother was here and she didn't speak the language. She spoke, she had to learn it and she had to make her own way. And, it's so when you're conscious of the struggles of previous generations, and I think with Judaism in particular, we're ancient survivors. We're
ancient hustlers.
Yeah, we're ancient hustlers and have somehow persevered persecution over centuries and centuries.
But I think it's really interesting how you touch on there are many different ways to survive and to move on from things that are painful. And some responses might be to block it off and just move forward, move into the future and disconnect from the past. And other responses might be to feel nostalgic and wedded to the past and see that as a better time and that will never be recreated. And it's really interesting you talking about using the past and having that as this thing that emboldens you, that makes you feel a different kind of love for this woman in your family who you might feel similar to and connected to. And as you face those things, it's just shit, she faced it too, what the fuck. And I think that's kind of in between that nostalgia and that blocking out of our past, but actually using it as this kind of secret superpower that we hold with us, which is a kind of nice reclamation of it. I don't know.
I mean, it's a miracle that we're here.
Literally. You mean in this kitchen?
Just in
this kitchen in Melbourne, talking now.
Yes, exactly.
It is very odd.
But it's
weird. I find it weird.
It's just a miracle that, as individuals, we're here as Jewish people, that we managed to somehow survive all of that persecution. It's a miracle that humans exist. How did we get here? I think that coming to every moment with gratitude and counting your blessings is a way to not get stuck on better time, on times that were better, because things are not always terrific, but eventually they will be. The sun comes up with or without us in the world, and things move, you know, like, so sometimes things are rough and sometimes they're great and everything in between.
So, do you think you might become a monk or a Buddhist monk? Because you sound very enlightened and grounded, and you know, I think all my judgments of Taureans have been proven wrong.
Obliterated.
In this time, this beautiful time I've been able to share with you. But how you sound so grounded and generous and...
Well, you know, I bring all of those values into everything that I do, and I think as a cultural producer, I mean, I think that we just look for wisdom wherever we can find it, and every person you encounter is your teacher. You know, there is something to learn from everybody you touch. And it's so important that we exist, I think, in the physical world and allow ourselves that kind of those random moments of connection. I think that if we lose our ability to just spontaneously interact with people in real time, we lose our humanity. Like, there's something really big that's lost.
Yeah. Do you see that happening more and more often?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, but it's not, I mean, I think that if you're able to transcend that or transgress that, if you're able to do something different, it gives you an advantage.
Well, I find even today when you speak to someone on the street to ask them something, they're actually horrified, like, wait, what? And they think you're going to, you know, accost them, and we have so many barriers and walls up around us.
Yeah.
And we seem to feel much more comfortable connecting through our phones than IRL, so to speak. But yeah, it's interesting that it can be super radical just to chat to someone, and it can be as simple as that.
Yeah, I do it all the time. You know, like, honestly, I love having random conversations with people.
Yeah, and I feel like you can go there. You go deep. You go deep.
Yeah, but I mean, I think our job is to influence and impact as much change as we can, and I do know that, like, you know, we all have something to offer. And so many people are shut down, and it's a really beautiful thing when you're able to reach somebody by saying something that changes them.
Yeah.
Octavia Butler said, "Everything you touch, you change."
Wow.
Everything you change changes you.
Wow.
It's the beginning of Parable of the Sower. If you want to know a book, actually, it's a very...
Parable of the Sower? Another book?
Parable of the Sower. I read every Octavia Butler book.
Wow.
Last year, just to challenge myself, just to see if I could do it. Wow. Yeah.
And we spoke a bit earlier about your passion of water signs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to understand where that's about, because you can go deep, and you obviously have a connection to the ephemeral and the esoteric, but also having it rooted in reality, in like, actually, what does that look like? And it sounds like it looks like just connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've just, you know, over the years, dated a lot of different signs. And there's, you know, you have some successes and some less successful coming together with people, coalescence, and I pretty much only date water signs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad there's someone
and
for them.
And it's just like, I think there's some element of it where I think it's subconscious, and everybody I'm interested in just happens to be a water sign. Like, it's very rare that I'm like consciously like, no, I will not.
But it finds you.
Yeah.
What is it about water signs that you think draws you to them subconsciously?
I don't know. I mean, I think that
they're hot. Like, they know what to do.
Yeah, it's a grounding. I mean,
Yeah.
I ground a water sign.
Yes.
And I think a water sign gives me the kind of like, you've looked at my chart. I only have Cancer
Yes.
in Venus, and it's actually like the only water in my sign. Everything else is earth, air, and fire. So there's tons of Sag.
Tons.
There's a little bit of Libra in Saturn and Pluto. And otherwise, otherwise Taurus.
Yes. And I feel like your travel bag was a total Sagittarius travel bag. It was
Yeah.
like, yep, everything was compartmentalized. You had everything in case like World War IV was to come to the Festival of Jewish Arts and Music.
Oh, totally.
You're ready. You've got your rations.
My survival pack.
I was
survival pack is
amazed.
very beauty focused.
No, but you will be beautiful in the apocalypse, and
That's
you
the
know
idea.
what a better way to approach it.
That's the idea. Yeah.
Very Sag, but you're right. There's hardly any water in that chart, so it makes sense that that complements some of your qualities, and you complement them as well.
Definitely, and I've had significant relationships at this point with all three water signs. So, like, my first significant relationship was with a Cancer. More recently, Pisces and Scorpios. I haven't been with a Cancer, I think, since the first.
It's good to take a break.
One. Yeah, and then I've had, the thing I understand is that you're typically most compatible with your opposite elements. So for Earth, it's water. For water, it's earth. And then air and fire. So that's just like the yin and yang kind of ecosystem. And next, you're most compatible with your like signs. So earth signs with earth signs, air signs with air signs, etc. And then, earth signs would then be like a little less compatible with fire signs and least compatible with air signs. Air signs are least compatible, like less compatible with water signs, but most incompatible with earth signs. Water signs are most compatible with earth signs. Next, compatible with. Anyways, getting lost.
Okay.
Let's stick with the first two.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I've never really been with earth signs, other earth signs. So
You got a gut full of it growing up. You had enough.
yeah, totally.
Is there a reason why you think,
Oh, but the other thing is that if you end up with, like, if earth signs with earth signs, my parents, being examples of this, I think the tendency is to be very rooted and very home-based.
they mate for life. They stick. Yeah.
And so I think, like, I probably just, in my personality, am more drawn to the opposite. Like,
The
somebody
watery.
who brings something that's different.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a reason why queer and communities are so attracted to star signs and astrology? Because that's something I've been asked a lot, and there's been a huge interest in that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just because we maybe are hardwired for looking for more answers, or for curiosity, or for looking beyond what we know. I think I think that there actually are privileges that come along with being queer, and one of them is, for example, like the creation of your own family, like that you kind of like build your own family that's not limited to people you're related to. And I think a part of that is like finding yourself and your history in a community that is not organized the way that a family is. So like in trying to locate yourself in history, the history of like trans people, for example, it's very fractured, it's very sparsely documented. It's these kinds of like, it's like a connecting to spirits whose names you don't know, by and large. Like, we know some of their names, but we don't know all of their names. Like, there's more. And I guess that's true of any kind of, subculture or small community. So I think that there is a part of being queer that is about seeking family, seeking the tradition that you're a part of, and understanding that and knowing that it's not necessarily linked to your biology or like who you are physically, but that it's that it connects you to something through time that's kind of ephemeral ultimately. It's like we have ancestors, like you can spend so much time tracing your ancestry, but then tracing, the ancestry of like a community that you come into
that isn't documented, that isn't spoken. It is a history, it's a lineage that you feel and you're part of, but in a different way.
Yeah, I think that in, that gender diversity has existed since the beginning of time, in the earliest civilizations, and in most indigenous cultures there's multiple genders, and the gender binary was something that was imposed by kind of polite, civilized, colonial imperialist countries. And that third sex, non-binary people in indigenous cultures were the seers and the dreamers and the visionaries, and had this sort of elevated status in their communities. So I think that there is that element. I mean, I think that people who kind of I think that transness is a sort of transcending of one's body, in a way. It's like thankfully with the tools of modern medicine, like, we're able to actually physically alter ourselves to be more aligned with the way that we feel. All that. I don't know.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like, I think that there's like maybe just a deeper curiosity in like, how did I get here and who am I? Like, there's a questioning that happens. I guess that's the key. It's like, if you are self-identifying as queer, as in the LGBTQ community, like, you have to admit things to yourself, and then you have to like share it with the world, and then you have to be your truest self every day. Whereas I think people who don't have that experience are sometimes less challenged.
Yeah, they're immune from it, or sheltered from that, or never thrown into having to experience or explore that. And I think, even just to touch on astrology again, you can experience astrology as a very binary, rigid thing where people are like, oh, I'm so this, I'm so that. But some people, the truest form of it could be all of it encapsulated in one chart. So we all have all of the elements and qualities, which fits into seeing multiple identities and multiple experiences. And you mentioned or you spoke of visionaries and seers and feelers in communities. Is that something that you've experienced yourself, being able to tap into seeing and feeling and experiencing things in not just the traditional physical sense? Like, are you pretty intuitive? Can you sense when it's going to rain? In Melbourne, you probably can't.
Oh my god, in Melbourne, I don't even know.
I don't know who I
I'm
am.
just like, yeah, I don't even know who I am anymore.
You're a local
I'm
now.
like-
You know it. You know it.
Oh my god, after
3 days. No.
4. This is day 4. I was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wow.
Okay, I'm on day 5.
Day 5.
And I definitely took that many days to adjust to the time difference. It's so wacky.
Yes.
It's
Do
incredibly wacky.
Are you still on America time, or are you?
I think I think last night was my first night of just a regular sleep.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that we all have the power to use our intuition, and so often we're not listening to our intuition. I think that it's just a channel that we can open, and the more practice, like the more intention you put into it, the more you see or feel or hear. And yeah, I am intuitive. I don't talk about it that much. I'm always a
Great.
little,
I've just
always-
thrown you.
No, it's fine.
I'm throwing you under the bus.
I'm a little bit always resistant to people just flat out telling me that they're psychic or telling me that they're clairvoyant or
skeptical,
clairaudient or clairsentient. And I get, I do. I feel like there's just a lot of information actually, and if you're awake and alert and paying attention to the messages that your own body is giving you, and then every time you meet somebody, every time you come into contact with somebody, in that first instant, I think we can know a tremendous amount about a person. And of course, I can't measure that. I can't measure my experience in contrast to anyone else's. But I do think that we're capable of an expanded consciousness, and that if we can spend at least a part of our life trying to expand that consciousness, then we'll be more prepared to help the people around us, and ultimately more prepared for our own death.
Wow. Zackary Drucker, if the apocalypse has come outside of this kitchen that we're sitting in, which it very well may have, I'm
ready.
I know that you're ready. I 100% know that you're ready, and I'm just so privileged to be here with you.
Oh, I'm Prince. The honor is all mine.
No.
Honestly.
Oh, you say that to all the kitchen interviewers, I'm sure.
I've never done a kitchen interview, so this is actually...
I'm happy to be your first,
Yeah.
and thank you for your time and your generosity. It's been a real privilege. I feel like we could probably talk for another 5 hours. We're probably meant to be on stage somewhere now.
We have 30 minutes, actually.
Oh, we have 30
minutes. No, we
minutes.
have 27
We
minutes.
have 27 minutes.
So we gotta go.
Okay.
We
We've
love
got
you
to
out
go.
there.
Thank you so much for coming on to Astrology Roast. For those that want to see you, follow you, you're on Instagram, you live in the States, you've got a talk coming this Friday. This podcast may or may not be out by then.
Put it out.
We'll put it out.
The talk on Friday is going to be at the Capitol. It's with RMIT, and we're doing a screening of The Queen in the evening, which is an incredible cinema verite documentary from the 60s about drag competitions in America pre-Stonewall. And Instagram, I do use Instagram more often than the other platforms.
Yeah.
I spell my name ZACKARYDRUCKER, Zackary Drucker.
And are you available for psychic readings if people want to hit you up?
Yes, you can hit me up.
And
you can hit me up, DM me.
DMs, all the rage. And dare I say, the Transparent musical is about to be released.
Yes.
And I just fucking cannot wait. It's going to be wonderful.
The premiere is in a week.
In
Los Angeles, but it's not going to be on TV until the end of the month. So September 27th is the official release date.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Which I think is, that might be deep in Sagittarius month or something like that. Which would make sense if it's a, no holds barred musical about, neurotic Jewish families and...
Yeah. September 27th is Libra season.
Oh, okay.
You know what? And it's interesting because Joel Soloway, the creator of the show, is a Libra.
You know what? I'm really not surprised. I don't know why. It just feels right.
Yeah, there's a lot of Libra energy on the show.
Yeah, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing show, but also all of your other work is so wonderful. Your photography, your performance art. There's so much people can learn from the work that you have. Obviously, check out Zackary's website, which has a bit of snapshot to some of your work as well. But thank you again for your generosity, and it's been such a pleasure to hear your amazing wisdom about so many, beautiful topics, jumping from astrology to love to... your passion about making art and making love and the strong mission and responsibility in your work.
Oh,
it's a lot. Shucks.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Later, everyone.